Hello, everyone. My name is Louis, and in this video, I will be discussing the phenomena of flow and flow states. I'll be talking about what it is, how it makes you feel, and why it makes you feel that way, why it matters, why I think flow matters, and why the people who are writing and researching and learning about flow and putting work out there, why they think it matters. And I'll also be talking about how you can use flow to be more productive, more creative, and to enjoy your work and your hobbies and your life more. So first, I'd like to tell you about the research that I did. So I read a book called Stealing Fire: How Silicon Valley, the Navy SEALs, and maverick scientists are revolutionizing the way we live and work, by Steven Kotler and Jamie Wheal. Then I read a book called The Rise of Superman: Decoding the Science of Ultimate Human Performance, by Steven Kotler. Then I watched a YouTube video where Steven Kotler was speaking at Google, and the topic was the science of maximizing human potential. And the video was published on the 18th of June 2018. And then I watched another YouTube video, and this time it was with Jamie Wheal speaking to Aubrey Marcus on the Aubrey Marcus podcast, number 99. And the title was Stealing Fire from the Gods: Ecstasis, with Jamie Wheal, and it was published on the 10th of May 2017. So I want to tell you a little bit about the credentials of the authors. So Steven Kotler, this is what I got from his website. Steven Kotler is a New York Times best-selling author, an award-winning journalist, and the co-founder and director of research of the Flow Genome Project. He is one of the world's leading experts on high performance. He has written 8 bestsellers, including Stealing Fire and The Rise of Superman. His works have been translated into 40 languages and appeared in over 40 publications. His books, A Small Furry Prayer and Stealing Fire, were nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And then we have Jamie Wheal, and this is from his LinkedIn page. It says, Jamie Wheal is an expert on peak performance and leadership, specializing in the neuroscience and application of flow states. He has advised everyone from the U.S. Naval War College and Special Operations Command, the athletes of Red Bull, and the owners of NFL, NBA, MLB, and Premier League teams, to the executives of Google, Goldman Sachs, Deloitte, Cisco, and Young Presidents Organization. His work and ideas have been covered in the New York Times, Financial Times, Wired, Entrepreneur, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, INC, and TEDx. He has spoken at Stanford, MIT, the Harvard Club, the Bohemian Club, the United Nations, Singularity University, and Summit Series. And add to that, he also co-founded the Flow Genome Project with Steven Kotler, and Jamie Wheal is the director of projects at the Flow Genome Project. And I'd just like to say, talk a little bit about the Flow Genome Project. So they have a website where they offer online courses in how you can create more flow in your life. Courses teaching you about how flow works, and giving you some depth on and a route to understanding flow. They also have a free questionnaire that you can do that gives you your flow archetype, which is, I have found, quite useful in understanding what the advantages are for me in creating flow in my life, and also some of the pitfalls. And that's a free survey that you can do if you go onto their website. Okay, so the first question is, what is flow? So in his talk at Google, Stephen says that flow can be found wherever people are doing the impossible, wherever people are reaching the limits of ultimate human performance. So that could be someone walking on a tightrope across a chasm, or someone skiing down a mountain, or someone performing stand-up in front of thousands of people. To many people, those feats seem impossible. The technical term is flow, and it means where we feel at our best and we perform mentally and physically at our best. Some people will know flow as runner's high, being in the zone, the state of unconsciousness in basketball. I believe that's a basketball term. Stand-up comedians know the term the forever box. Basically, it's where you're so focused on your task that action and awareness merges, your sense of self disappears, and time dilates. And as Stephen says in his talk, that's a fancy way of saying that time is weird. So time will slow down. It'll feel like you're seeing things in freeze frame. But on the other hand, 5 hours will go by and it'll feel like only 5 minutes went by. He says that flow is a focusing skill. If you know how flow works and what circumstances create flow, you can use it to put your attention into the present. Yeah, so that's what flow is. And it can show up in many different ways for people. Some people might find flow when they're surfing. Some people might find flow when they're spending time by themselves, working on something like maybe gardening or drawing or painting. So next we're going to talk about how this term flow was defined. So this information also comes from Stephen's talk at Google. So in 1871, a guy called Albert Heim, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he said, high-risk experiences can precipitate radical shifts in consciousness. So how I see that, how I understand that, is that if you do something risky, after you do something risky, your feelings and how you feel and how you perceive yourself or the world will change. So an example could be, say you walk up to a pretty girl at the bar, and that's a high risk situation. You're facing social rejection, and so after doing that, you'll feel differently to how you did before you did it. So you might feel confident because you've witnessed yourself doing that, and your perspective would have changed because now you believe that you can do something like that. So then in 1901, a guy called William James, who we'll see is very important for the idea of flow, and um, he'll have a part to play in the story a bit later. So he said, radical shifts in consciousness amplify human physical and mental performance. So what he was saying, I think, is that, say you've always wanted to surf a 30-foot wave. So now let's use two examples. Say that you've never done it before, then your how you feel would probably be scared, and your perspective would probably be, I can't do this. I don't think I can do this. Now, and the outcome would be that your physical performance you might not do it. You might not even attempt it. So your physical performance would be a 0 in this case. But say that before you go surfing that day, your perspective, your consciousness, you had a shift in consciousness, and your perspective, your feeling was, I feel great and confident, and your perspective was, I can do this. What would likely occur, or more likely occur, is that you would then go out and surf that 30-foot wave. So that shift in consciousness had impacted your physical performance. And now, having surfed the wave, your physical performance would be at a 1. That's how I describe what he said in 1901. I'm not sure if that's very clear, but yeah, let's continue. So then in 1964, a guy called Abraham Maslow, who was famous for his Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He said that all successful people depend on peak experiences. And what he was saying is that the reason why people gain success, or the most successful people are where they are, is because of they've managed to harness these experiences of being in the zone, of shutting off their sense of self. They've managed to use this flow. He didn't call it flow, but they've managed to use this focusing skill to vastly improve their skill. Then in 1975, a man who Stephen and Jamie refer to as the godfather of flow, his name was Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was the University of Chicago's psychology department chairman, and he had many breakthroughs regarding flow. He said, the first thing he said was that flow is definable. Flow is a state of consciousness where your attention is locked in the present, where your sense of self diminishes, and where time dilates. He also says that it is where action and awareness merge. He said that because it's definable, flow is measurable, because you can ask people how often they experience these characteristics that define flow. And as technology improved, flow became more measurable using brain scans and current neuroscience technology. The third thing he said was that we as humans are hardwired for flow, meaning that if given the right circumstances, any of us can get into these flow states. And the last thing he said was that flow is fundamental. He said that flow is the key to living a life of meaning and having a life with high and living and having high life satisfaction. And he said that the people who test in the highest percentiles for surveys for life satisfaction usually have more flow in their life. And so he also named the term flow. He defined the word flow, and part of what he did was he went around the world interviewing the most successful people in various fields, and he asked them how they gained their success. And he also interviewed people who seem to have a lot of life satisfaction, and he asked them why. And many of them said that they got into these states when working or during their days when each decision would flow from the next. And so he defined this state of consciousness as flow.